Okay, so lastly, we have our cell membranes. So these are different than our lipoproteins. Our lipoproteins only had one layer of our phospholipids. Cell membranes are going to have two layers. As you'll see here, you have the polar bottom and a polar top with our cell membrane in the middle. These are used to separate cell contents from external fluid. And we call it a semi-permeable membrane, meaning that things can go through these membranes. They're not completely don't block literally everything out. There are versions of these kinds of things that do block everything out. Actually, my research lab has made a few of those interesting ones that bacteria has that are really rare. But in general, in most living things, we have semi-permeable membranes, meaning it allows nutrients to get into the cells and waste to go out of the cells as needed. So just looking at the different things that we have here. So we have our phospholipid bilayer. So that means bilayer, there's two phospholipids. These can be those glycerophospholipids and the sphingomyelins. Both make up this bilayer here. So we have our hydrophilic regions, which are in the top and the bottom. That means that they love hydro, so love water. And then we have our hydrophobic region in the middle. Those are those hydrophobic tails. So it's important to remember too that these are not tightly packed. It's a fluid and dynamic membrane. So there's space in between these different molecules a little bit. They kind of like being next to each other, but it's a little bit like there's a little wiggle room to move around when necessary. We also have other things such as carbohydrates that are there as sensor molecules. We have cholesterol, which is about 20 to 25% of that bilayer, which helps bring rigidity and strength to these very fluid phospholipids. And then we also have proteins. So these are the blue portions here. They can either be peripheral membrane proteins, like this, where the protein's only on one side of the membrane, or it could be an integral membrane protein, meaning it's a kind of a transport protein. So it's kind of like a tunnel to let things in and out through the membrane. So talking about actual transport through cell membranes, there's three different types of transport that we're going to worry about: diffusion, facilitated transport, and active transport. So the first one is just diffusion. Molecules diffuse from areas of high to low concentration. So these red balls here, you can see there's a lot of these red molecules. And so diffusion is where just the molecules kind of shimmy their way through the phospholipid bilayer. This is called passive transport because we don't need to extend or put energy into the system to do this. What really drives it is the concentration gradient. So there's more concentrated on one side, less on the other. So I'm trying to equilibrate and equal that out. This typically happens with small molecules such as oxygen, carbon dioxide, water, or urea, which looks like this guy here. Guess we can zoom in a little bit. Looks like this guy here. And then additionally, diffusion can be in or out, but it depends on that concentration gradient. It always goes from high to low, never goes from low to high. Another type of transport is going to be facilitated transport. So overall, this is very similar. You're going from high to low amounts of things. These, however, happen through, these happen through these integral membrane proteins. So a protein is there to specifically facilitate, to help the transport of specific ions. So this protein provides a channel, kind of like to think of it as like the tubes of a subway. I don't know, it allows for the molecules to go through. Don't mind me. However, this still relies on the concentration gradient. This is still kind of a passive method. It will only go towards the high to low. So it will only go in this direction in this case. because we have the high to the low amount. If you want to switch that, then you can use something called active transport. So back to our pictures here, you see we still have the high on the outside, low on the inside here. And if we use energy, we can use these integral membrane proteins to get a molecule from low concentration and push it out to where there's a high concentration. So the cell can move certain ions against a concentration gradient, so going from low to high. And this is used to accumulate high concentrations of necessary molecules. So a lot of the times in biology, you'll hear these such as potassium pumps or sodium pumps, because we need sodium or potassium in high levels in specific places of our body. However, this requires energy. So this is active. It requires energy from the cell in order for this transport to occur. Requires energy, so that's really important to remember. Okay, so that's how cell membranes work and what roles lipids have in cell membranes.